was all very professional. Hey, what's up, America? This is Get to Know the CEO. It's hosted by America's sweetheart, Eric Ryan. I am America's sweetheart, Eric Ryan. Today, what we're going to do is try to humanize, that's a hard word to say, humanize corporate America through the magic and power of stupid questions. Today's CEO is Damon Lembi of Learnit. He's also the host of the Learn It All podcast. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Eric, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, anytime. Your bands, all right, I should say this first. The first question is your three favorite bands. Your bands delight and excite me because let me tell you this about Guns N' Roses. I fucking love Guns N' Roses. I think they are the second greatest American rock band behind Aerosmith. The only reason I give Aerosmith the edge is they were relevant for 30 years, which is something Guns N' Roses cannot say. But this is what a rock and roll band should look like, isn't it?
Totally. And I love Aerosmith too. You know, I mean, I love Aerosmith too. I saw Guns N' Roses open up for them a long time ago. So, but yeah, great band.
I love too, like the names. They sound like a rock and roll band because you got Axl Rose, Izzy Stradlin, Slash, Duff McKagan, and Steven Adler. And Axl Rose and Slash knew that they didn't have cool names, so they changed their names. I think it was William Rose and Saul Hudson is Slash.
Yeah, Bill Bailey. Bill Bailey. That's not a cool rock and roll song. But if they were in Mumford & Sons or some shit, they would go with Bill Bailey. But this, I like my rock and roll bands to wear mascara and worship Satan. And that's I don't know if Guns N' Roses worship Satan, but I don't think any of them are sober in that picture.
No, and that's what rock and roll should be all about. I mentioned this on the episode yesterday, but I recently watched a documentary about the Whiskey A Go-Go in the Rainbow Room in LA.
Love that place.
Oh, and Slash has his own booth. Like, okay, I was 7 at the time when Appetite came out, but God damn it, I wish I was in a band in 1987 in LA. Wouldn't that have been something?
Have you ever been to the Rainbow in LA?
No. Should I go?
Oh, if you want to feel like you're in a band in 1987, you got to go to the Rainbow. It's right next door to the Whiskey, and it's like a time warp where you go back in there, and it's everybody's still living the dream. Like it's 87. It's awesome. It's my favorite bar to go to when I go visit friends in Los Angeles.
Well, I know Lemmy used to hang out, right, and play video poker all day.
Totally.
Drank himself to death. Like that's pretty fucking cool. Well,
yeah.
Did he? Who knows?
I met Lemmy, but not at the Rainbow.
Oh, you met Lemmy somewhere else. Well,
yeah.
What are the odds? You do need a rock and roll name. This is a great thing that rap does. Every rapper has a rap name. Rock and roll, like for some reason, the weirdo name isn't utilized enough. Professional wrestling, rap and rock is the only time you can get away with doing some wacky shit. And I don't know why rock and roll stars don't do it more often.
Yeah.
What is you have an Axl story, right?
I have an Axl story. So long story short, I was fortunate enough to meet a bunch of people in the late 90s who were in the rock and roll industry. One of them was this gentleman named Dean Delray, who's got a phenomenal podcast called Let There Be Talk. He's become a big time comedian and a podcast host. But back then, he just kind of hung out with a lot of these guys, went to the shows and was a roadie. And so at the time, my family had a hotel chain. So, Eric, I was the guy that they'd call in San Francisco, and I'd swap them passes. They'd give me passes, and I'd give them free hotel rooms. And I would get backstage passes to different shows, everything from, I don't know, the Wallflowers to Velvet Revolver and everything in between, Duran Duran. Anyways, so in September of 2006, I got a call from Dean Delray. And he's like, "Hey man, I got something that I know you're going to be totally into." And that's kind of how we talk. But he said, "Guns N' Roses." Now at the time, it was only Axl. So none of these guys were in the band. You know, it was Axl.
It's the Chinese Democracy album.
Yes, totally. And he said, you know, they're doing 2 nights in 3 months at the Warfield, and Axl wants to put on an after party. Do you think you could hook it up? And I'm like, absolutely, I can do it. You know, I mean, and I think that from a business perspective, I think a lot of great CEOs will, or business leaders will say yes and figure it out later, you know, sometimes.
Yeah.
So I said, sure. And he's like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have this guy named Bill Hardy contact you. Hardy is kind of like Axl's tour manager or something. And I said, yeah, right on. So literally 5 minutes later, I get a call from Bill Hardy, who is very direct, and he's just like, Axl wants to have an after party. It needs to go till 4 o'clock in the morning. It needs to be 70% women, and they need to be able to sell booze until or have booze until 4 a.m. No questions asked. And by the way, we just had a party at the bungalow in New York with Kate Moss and everybody else, and Axl didn't show up, so Axl's probably not going to show up. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll get it done. And he's like, okay, great, bye, and hung up on me, and that was it. Wow. And so I called my brother, who's my best friend, Taylor, and I'm like, what do we do? And we thought, Eric, it would be easy. Like any band would want to have a party for Axl Rose, even if it wasn't the regular band. So, and we knew a bunch of the guys who ran bars and clubs and everything in the city, but nobody would do it because it would be until 4 o'clock in the morning, on like a Wednesday night. So I finally found this club that's no longer around, called Club Whisper. And the guy's like, yeah, man, I'll totally do it. I'll totally do it. So sure enough, I'm just kind of going through this relatively quickly. So sure enough, we put this together. We contact everybody we knew, all the girls we knew, all our friends we knew, and everybody was pumped up to go to this party that would start at midnight after Guns N' Roses finished their show at the Warfield. They even gave us a rider list, for our listeners who don't know what it is. That's like the food they wanted, the drinks, even cigars Axl wanted that we actually had
brown M&Ms, that whole thing.
And so we go to dinner, and I meet this guy, Bill Hardy. He's like 6'6". He's super quiet. And we don't even go to the show. We go to dinner, and we're having dinner with Bill Hardy and the owner of the club, and we're sitting there, and I'm kind of nervous because it's a Wednesday night, right? And so, like, what if nobody shows up? How terrible, what's going to happen? And so we text the guy at about 10:30, who's this guy named Andrew, who worked for security in our family's business. And we're like, is anybody there? And he's like, dude, there's like 200 people in line outside waiting to get in.
Wow. And
so we're like, oh man, that's awesome.
That better be 140 girls though for Axl.
It was.
Okay, good. Thank God.
Yeah. And so, anyways, we're having a great dinner. We're all pumped up, having drinks. And, I could see Hardy's like a little nervous, he's just, and as I got to know him later, I would know why, because Axl is probably not an easy boss to work for. And so the owner of the club says, hey, can I talk to you over by the bar? And so I said, sure. So me and my brother go over to the bar with him, and he's like, we got a little bit of an issue. And I said, what's the issue? And he said, well, we've been getting this notice from the city that they were going to shut off water throughout the city to do some construction work and everything. And, apparently our corridor, our neighborhood, they're going to shut off at from 11 to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, that's not a big deal. We can, we'll just go get, cases of water. Let's go to Safeways and get, or Walgreens, get cases of water.
Yeah.
My brother hits me and he's like, no, you idiot. They're
the
talking about, that's not the issue. It's the bathrooms. It's the bathrooms. There'll be no bathrooms. And I said, well, what? And I talk about this story in my book, from a decision-making perspective, chapter 5. And so we kind of sat there for a second. And I said, can I talk to Taylor about this? And, there's no way to get porta potties. There's nothing really we can do, Eric.
Yeah, so it's midnight on a Wednesday. There's not a lot of porta potties.
It's midnight on a Wednesday. Can't get bags of ice and refill them. So we said, okay, so worst case scenario, there's no water and we just fall flat on our face. I call it purposeful awfulizing. If I look 6 months in the future, how bad is this decision going to be? Right. Is it going to haunt me forever? And so like, well, this isn't like you're losing your house or losing your job. So we just said, screw it. Let's just go for it.
Axl Rose doesn't need water. That's outrageous.
So we don't tell anybody, because I don't want to freak out Hardy. So we go to the party, we show up, and we have everything from go-go dancers. My buddy Del Rey is DJing. And this is when Guns N' Roses first came out of hiding, for about 10 years. And so everybody in the 80s was there. Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, Kurt Hammett from Metallica, along with Robert Trujillo, Scott Ian, I think his name is, from Anthrax.
Yeah, that's a hell of a party. Yeah,
Whitney Crane from Ugly Kid Joe, everybody. And so everybody's having a great time, but there's no Axel, and so people are coming up to me and they're like, dude, where's Axel? Where's Axel? And I said, who cares? Do you see that Sebastian Bach's walking around
Ugly
pouring
Kid
drinks
Joe
for
is here, for
people?
Christ's sakes. Right.
Ugly Kid Joe, who ended up at the after party for quite a while. And I said, just have a good time, for who cares,
There's 140 chicks in Kurt Hammett. I mean, what more do you want?
By this time, there's about 400 people. So if you do the math, whatever that is, and it was just a blast. But then around 3 o'clock in the morning, Hardy comes running up to me and he's like, Axel's here, and no kidding. And he's like, so get all your buddies out of the VIP room, and free it up. And so I had all, I kind of freed it up. And honest to God, like the second he walked in, the vibe changed. It was like just this electricity. And Del Rey went and put on, the intro to Sweet Child of Mine. And I swear to God, I'm not even making this up. Axel came over and he kind of did his little snake dance,
the serpentine thing he does.
Serpentine thing. Came, sat down, had his girlfriend with him, sat down, seemed to be in a good mood. And everybody just started coming over. And the next thing you knew, all these girls were like talking to him. And his girlfriend didn't appreciate that. And so she got upset. And so she ended up storming out. And so 2 minutes later, Axel smashed out a cigar and left. So go ahead.
You would have thought he goes, listen, honey, just so you know, I asked that this party be 70% females. Why I'm bringing my girlfriend, I had no idea. But the fact that Axl Rose wasn't the voice of reason is shocking. I can't believe it. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, so Axel left and was only there for probably 10, 15 minutes. I think he like bumped into my sister on the way in or way out. And it was a classic story. And I'm like, how many people can say that they had a party for Axl Rose? And
with no water.
The water didn't happen. So we didn't, we didn't have an issue with the water. So that was great.
Oh,
and then on top of it, Bill Hardy, who I met that night, has been a lifelong friend ever since. And his daughter, hi, Sydney, if you ever watch this, has been our kid's favorite babysitter. And so I through Hardy, then I got to go backstage at Coachella and all these different events. And so I'm fortunate for our friendship and I'm fortunate that we had water.
Wow, that's a hell of a night. And Gabe, I believe that if I'm getting this right, Guns N' Roses used to live in like a storage facility for a while when they first got to LA. So I think they're used to shitting in places where there's no water. So I don't know that to be true, but it seems like a party without water wouldn't be a big deal if there's a 70% girl to guy ratio.
I wanted to clarify for Gabe that there was toilets. It was just a possibility that maybe that maybe they wouldn't have water, but there was toilets in Club Whisper.
Oh God, I should have been a rock star. The thing too, the November Rain video with Stephanie Seymour in the wedding dress. I told every girlfriend growing up, I was like, if we get married, I need you to wear that dress to our wedding. I ended up getting married. No Stephanie Seymour wedding dress. I asked for so little. All right. Let's move on to your second, very much in the same vein. This guy, Billy Joel. When I first read this, I thought it said Billy Idol, and I got all excited because I was going to talk about the Cradle of Love video, but no, it's Billy Joel, which is fine. Why do you love Billy Joel?
Stevie Stevens played at my 40th birthday party. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, you plugged in.
Billy Idol. Yeah. Love Billy Joel. Absolutely love Billy Joel. I think a lot of it is because my father was a big Billy Joel fan. My father passed away probably 14 years ago. I've seen Billy Joel probably 30, 40 times live. I just love him. We had my dad took us to see him New Year's 2000 at Madison Square Garden. As a family, it was one of those events where we all dressed up. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and we had such a great time. I also got to go to the last play at Shea that he did. And then when Learnit, my company, had a business in New York, I would kind of time going to Madison Square Garden or go out to Learnit when Billy was playing, and I would just buy a cheap ticket on StubHub. And he's, if you know anything about him, he's a rock star himself. Slash even talked about, going backstage and and Billy, out drinking him backstage. And Eric, the thing that really, really, really bums me out is he did his final show in July at Madison Square Garden, as part of that tour. As part of that residency. And guess who he pulled up for the encore to sing the final 3 songs?
Not Axl Rose. Who?
Axl Rose.
Get the fuck out of here! Oh my god.
Yeah. So my brother sent to me, he's like, dude, Axel's singing I May Be Right, May Be Crazy. Why aren't we there right now?
That's
insane. I said about my daughter's soccer game. I can't miss my daughter's soccer game. So, but how crazy
I'm sure your daughter would have understood.
She would have.
It's one soccer game. What was it? The national championship? Stop it. Here's the thing about Billy Joel that I find funny. So do you know who Chuck Klosterman is? He used to write for Rolling Stone. He's got a bunch of books on rock and roll. He has a book called Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. And he has a whole essay on Billy Joel. And it's funny that you say Slash considers him a rock star, because Chuck Klosterman's thing is that Billy Joel is the only uncool rock star. And I finally found the quote. He said, if cool was a color, it would be black. And Billy Joel would be some sort of burnt orange. But he knows every one of Joel's important songs, even the happy ones, are about loneliness. And his best material sounds like suicide notes. That's a little, I think, harsh.
Well, that guy's just jealous because Billy was married to Christy Brinkley and dated L.A. McPherson. And
he crushed. He absolutely crushed.
And this guy's sitting in an apartment somewhere writing articles. Billy Joel, I don't like people who make fun of people who are super successful and super talented. So,
Yeah. And here's the thing with Billy Joel too. He passes my, can you play for 3 hours and everybody knows every song? So I asked ChatGPT, I was like, what are Billy Joel's 20 best songs? Ready? Piano Man, Vienna, Just the Way You Are, Scenes from Italian Restaurant, New York State of Mind, Moving Out, Only the Good Die Young, We Didn't Start the Fire, Uptown Girl, Longest Time, She's a Woman, My Life, You May Be Right, Allentown, Good Night, Saigon, Tell Her About It, River of Dreams, Big Shot, It's Still Rock and Roll to Me, and Captain Jack. Holy shit. You know every one of those songs.
I can't believe you just named us all off. My 2 favorite out of that list are Vienna, which is awesome, and Scenes from Italian Cafe. And I even remember in 5th grade, trying to write out all the words to Piano Man, so yeah, big Billy Joel fan.
My only problem with Piano Man is he uses the frame tonic and gin. Nobody calls it a tonic and gin. It's gin and tonic. I'm sure I think you should have workshopped that a little. Here's the other thing. I think my favorite song is the Downeaster Alexa. That is such a specific
great song
about the plight of the fishermen. And I watched it last night on YouTube and I started reading the shit underneath. A lot of fishermen said Billy Joel, he helped the waters. Happened where maybe legislation was passed or some shit, but he sings this song and then all of a sudden the fishermen are back at work. He's an American treasure.
And you know what I want to say, for listeners out there too, is his new song is freaking great. It's awesome. I put it on replay and play it. So I'm a big Billy Joel fan.
One more thing about the comments too. Somebody made a great point. He said, nobody sings about America the way Billy Joel does. And that's a very astute point. He sings about a whole bunch of shit. Allentown and Downeaster and Lex are not about the same thing, but it's very American.
Yeah, isn't Allentown a great song where he's got that noise? And it's just
in the video. So there's no pretense to him. He does a bunch of goofy shit, but he plays. When you look like this, I guess there's no pretense at all.
Hey, at the end of the day, he's authentic. He's himself, and I love it when he in the shows where he gets up from his chair, kind of has a belly on him, and he flips the microphone stand around, and it just gets the crowd so pumped up. I have to find a place where he's playing so I can go see him soon.
He's an American treasure. All right. I
know you don't like the next one, but whatever. I do.
I love your "Don't Bring Sand to the Beach" comment. was very good. No, the next one I do. This is the only thing about them is they're like Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints rock, right? And I don't even think they are, but the fact that I know that Brandon is that's his name, right? Brandon Flowers is Mormon. You
could have painted a better picture than that, though. That's not a good picture.
I liked when he looked like this. I thought this was peak Killers. And here's the thing about the Killers. There used to be a website called Things White People Like. It would be like hiking, mayonnaise, sea salt, Target, Disney World. We also love the Killers because if anybody puts on Mr. Brightside or somebody told me, white people lose their fucking minds. It's because they make great songs. I put on the Killers Spotify thing when I was doing research. Awesome. I don't want to do the Billy Joel thing, but Mr. Brightside, When You Were Young, somebody told me, Human, all the things I've done, Read My Mind, Spaceman, Smile Like You Mean It, Shot at the Night, all fucking great songs.
Yep. They're absolutely, there was, I think about 3 years ago, again, my partner in crime, my brother, no, not 3 years ago, it was about 8 years ago, before COVID, I said, let's go see the Killers in at the Forum in LA, and he's like, they're a teeny bopper band. I don't want to go see those guys. I mean, and so, but I convinced him. I convinced him to go. And halfway through the first song, he turned to me and he's like, dude, this is like these guys are phenomenal live. And they really are. They're absolutely phenomenal live. And I just saw them in Vegas. And what I like about them is they put on a good show every time, and they sound better live than they do in the studio. And then the other thing I like is, well, one thing that I thought was really cool is Brandon was saying, because they're not from Vegas or from Utah, but he's like, I moved here at 15, 16, and a lot of people come to Vegas and they go for their dreams, and it doesn't work out for them. But he's like, then sometimes it does. And he went right into like Read My Mind, and the crowd just went freaking nuts. It was so awesome.
You don't see a lot of Mormon fronted rock and roll bands, so they might be the greatest of all time. If you're the greatest of all time at anything, I think you've done something. But yeah, I mean, part of me, I think that teeny bopper thing, and I'm sure that's gone away now because they've been around for 20 years, but
yeah,
they are followed by some stigma. And I'm not sure why, because the music is, they're good. They're real good.
Yeah.
All right, you want to move on to movies?
It's your show. Tell me what we're doing next.
We're moving on to your favorite movies. I had somebody do Rocky 3 last week. You're doing Rocky 2. I'm partial to Rocky 4. Why part 2? What about 2 that speaks to your mind?
So, excuse me again. The one scene where Adrian, she's in a coma and she's there, and Rocky's kind of leaning over and trying to read to her, but he's illiterate. He can't really read. And by the way, for you listeners who haven't seen Rocky 2 or haven't seen it in 30 years and can't remember, it's because she had to get a job at the pet store carrying, bird feed or whatever. And so she hurt herself, super pregnant or whatever. And so she's in this coma, and Rocky's, just reading to her. Then all of a sudden, like, she comes out of it and she wakes up. And Rocky's like, Adrian, I was thinking about it. I don't have to fight anymore. We could figure it out. And then Adrian looks at him and she says, just win. I still get goosebumps. I'm almost having goosebumps right now saying it. And he's like, what? She's like, just win. And then Mick in the background is like, what are we waiting for? Yeah. And it just, and then the next thing you know, he's like sprinting on the beach and punching, chickens or whatever, the cooked chickens, whatever. And, the raw chickens. And I don't know, Eric, I'm a big underdog kind of guy, and I think Sylvester Stallone, whatever you want to say, I think he's a genius, coming up with these movies. And I love all the Rockies, I love all of them. I can only pick this one. The final scene where they're both on the ground and they're crawling to get up the ropes. And the other thing this reminds me of is I was probably in, like, I don't know, 3rd grade, or I don't even know what Rocky it was, to be honest, but we had a basketball game. We had a good team, and we had a big break in between games. And my dad loaded us all in the van, and we like drove to the local movie theater and watched Rocky to get pumped up. And then we came back as the underdogs and just crushed the team. So yeah.
My issue with the Rocky movies is, and I've said this every time somebody brings up Rocky, I just don't. So when you go to movies, you have to suspend disbelief. Obviously, nobody goes to Jurassic Park. You go, those dinosaurs aren't real. My only issue with Rocky is it's based on a real sport. But the way the boxing is portrayed is every punch is an open shot to the head.
I knew you were going to say that.
To the stomach. And then fucking Mickey's supposed to be this great corner guy. I swear to God, if I was the corner guy, I'd go, Rocky, block 2 or 3 of these and you'll win the fucking fight. Why do you have a corner guy when everything is just like get hit in the fucking face for 9 rounds?
I knew you were going to say that, right? It just
it takes me out of it. It's like if it was a baseball movie and everything's a home run, or it's a football movie and everything's a touchdown. It's hockey every time. Oh, a half-court shot is 3 every time. It pulls you out. So if you're going to base the thing off reality, just throw a block every now and then.
But most people aren't watching professional boxing, so they don't know the difference between right or wrong. But as you get older, and you're like, how many blows is this guy going to take directly to the face?
Right. The reason he's talking like an idiot is because he has multiple concussions. Like somebody needs to get Rocky to a hospital, for Christ's sakes. One more thing about this, Carl Weathers, every time he's in something, I chuckle because I'm a big Happy Gilmore fan, and he's Chubbs in that. And then he was excellent in Arrested Development. So may he rest in peace, Apollo Creed. All right, let's go into your second one. Scent of a Woman. This is my favorite blind suicidal veteran smells women and then saves a kid's chance at Harvard movie. This is a very specific trope, but it's Al Pacino at his most Pacino. I think, it's hardcore Al Pacino. Why do you love this movie?
That scene at the end, the courtroom scene.
I watched that last night.
Is like my favorite freaking scene of all time. I'm not swearing because I got a 6-year-old and her whole class is watching this, Eric. So they're probably like, "Why is this guy swearing so much?" I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. She's not watching it.
It's only going to get worse. Go ahead.
But that scene where the kid sits down, Charles sits down, and the rich kid, Philip Seymour Hoffman, actually, right, is sitting over in the corner with his in his daddy's pocket, and Charles is there by himself facing the music. Al Pacino walks in blind, after, trying to commit suicide. I don't want to give the whole movie away.
It's
been
40 years.
And he sits down and then he just puts the principal in his place. And, and he's just like, "Are you finished?" And he's like, I'm just getting started. And then those three punks in the back are laughing. And he's like, "Bob, so F you too." And then he just gives this great speech. And again, it's another underdog story. It's very predictable, I guess you could say. But and there's just other scenes throughout the movie that I just love it.
It's based off an Italian novel. Did you know that? I read that.
Did not know that.
And I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes. It's beloved. 85% critic score, 92% audience score. And Pacino won Best Actor for it.
Yep.
I didn't watch the whole movie, but I watched a bunch of clips last night in preparation because I'm a professional. I thought Chris O'Donnell was going to be a bigger star. Handsome young man, good actor.
I thought so too. What happened to him?
I have no idea what happened to Chris O'Donnell. He's on the show next week, so I'll ask him. It was so because The Godfather comes up so much when I do what are your favorite movies. I used to be an avowed Godfather hater because it moved so slow, but I watched it as a teenager. I rewatched it. It's very good. But Al Pacino is so understated in that movie. It's shocking to see who he was early in his career and what he's become, because he's essentially this guy now. When he does interviews and shit in Hollywood, he is this version of Al Pacino. So I don't know.
I think he's awesome. And I don't know if you've seen it, go back to The Godfather, that show that they did of it's kind of like a historical fiction on The Godfather 1, I think on HBO. Miles Teller played, was the main character in it. I mean, that was actually a super cool series. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but you should check it out.
All right, I will. The Batman role may have ruined him. All I remember about Batman 3, I think that's the one it is. It's the Val Kilmer Batman, right? Everybody was up in arms about the nipples on the Bat suit, the Robin suit, and that was an odd choice, I have to say, aesthetically and artistically.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Oh, Chris O'Donnell ruined by Robin. I don't like DC. I'm more of a Marvel guy. Anyway, Star Wars. This one comes up a lot. The thing that Star Wars kind of passed me by. I'm not a Star Wars guy, but it's occurred to me that nerd culture is normal culture now, and I can't talk shit because I read comic books until I discovered girls. So I'm huge into like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is just as goofy as this. But if you were of a certain age, Star Wars spoke to your soul. I assume that's what it came out when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, do the math. I was born in 72, and
Star Wars years right there.
Yeah, and I don't really remember this, but my parents would tell me that in kindergarten, you had your sharing day where everybody sat in a circle, and I was the obnoxious kid who every time would say, I want to share, and it was always Star Wars stuff, and on top of it, even worse, and I'm not like this anymore. If another kid had a Star Wars toy and I didn't have it, I'd say, my mommy's going to buy that for me. My mommy's going to buy that for me. So
did she?
I don't know. I can't remember, but my sisters give me a hard time with that. They're like, you're just so obnoxious. It's like my 3-year-old son now with Paw Patrol. He's just like, everything is Paw Patrol. When I was 6, everything was freaking Luke Skywalker and Star Wars and
well, that's an interesting point about stardom. So your kid is watching Paw Patrol at this age. If he's your age and talking about how great the Paw Patrol movie is, that's bizarre. But with certain genres, we're allowed to say, I love this as a kid. I love it now. You know what I'm saying? Like I watched Power Rangers when I was a kid, but if I was like, oh, fucking the second Power Rangers movie is fantastic, I'd be like, that's weird. But some things are okay. And Star Wars seems to be okay.
Your jacket kind of looks like a Power Ranger jacket.
I I kind of Run DMC it because it's
Okay,
Adidas.
okay.
I'm not even a big Run DMC.
I can't see the whole thing. I'm just, I just, you know.
See, it's Adidas. Yeah.
Okay.
Although, I mean, I'm
I
not
got
a Power Rangers fine franchise.
Yeah.
So I talk about Star Wars a lot on the show only because it comes up so often. And I will say this about George Lucas: the man had balls, lots of money, outrageous plot, like a Wookiee and something named a Darth Vader, and they're gonna be fucking this incest a little bit. And people must have been, that's batshit crazy. He goes, no, trust me, it's gonna work. It's gonna change cinema forever. And it did.
It did.
I see kids in the guts. I don't think people in their 40s talking about Paw Patrol in a show like this, and it's gonna be fucking weird.
No, but Eric, I was thinking about this the other night. I mean, it's universal. Whenever we're with other families, and we all don't want to stick our kids in front of the video, right? Because that's too much TV is bad.
Yeah.
But if you just bring up Paw Patrol, everybody knows Paw Patrol. It's like, who's your favorite pup? My kid is Chase. We're actually going to be Paw Patrol. My wife is just like so over Paw Patrol. She doesn't even want to hear it, but it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I have a 3-year-old daughter. She's about to be 4. She's into Paw
awesome.
Patrol, but I just try to block it out by blasting Guns N' Roses all day. All right, let's go.
Get her into Frozen.
Kids these days can't sit through a whole movie. I know the generations are moving so quickly that you'd think, 5 years ago they could watch a Disney movie. Not anymore, because she's on an iPad and she's sifting through YouTube Shorts. So she watches 8,000 things in an hour. She can't sit and watch the same thing.
You can't let her watch YouTube Shorts. I mean, some stuff you get the wrong kind of stuff in there every once in a while. I get reprimanded by my wife all the time. Like, why is she watching this YouTube show? So
yeah, I'm like, because I don't want to raise her. That's why I have a piece of electronic. I brought my 7-year-old, to Deadpool and Wolverine, which is like, there's action every 3 seconds, people getting stabbed in the head and shot. And he's like bored. Like, do you fucking know what I had to watch when I was a kid? He-Man. All right. Let's talk about books. Richard Branson, Losing My Virginity. This man came from nothing, started his own thing, sold advertising in a magazine, worked his way up, 400 companies. That's it. He's like a quirky. He's the best of us, I think.
And dyslexic.
Oh my God. How much more can you stack against Richard Branson? But so I haven't read this book, but I sort of read the Cliff's Notes. Don't feel failure. Innovation thrives. Balance is the key. He's a work-life balance guy. You wouldn't expect that. You thought he'd be like a Gary Vaynerchuk, no sleep, wake up at 3, go to bed at 2:30 sort of thing. But no, seems like a very cool guy. So what do you like about this?
I just remember reading this book, I think around 1997 or 1998, when Learnit was small, really small, and we'd go up against these massive companies. There were Catapult and Productivity Point, owned by like IBM. And I remember reading this book, and again, the underdog. He was the underdog going up against, like British Airlines, and in the record industry. And I just loved his stories and his approach, and how he made it all about the customer experience. You'd go into a record store at Virgin, and everybody who was there, they had bean bags and you could smoke pot, but everybody who worked there, they knew everything about music, right? So it wasn't some static place. And how how creative he was. And then he weaved in these great stories about the Rolling Stones. And he all kind of did it in a way that was pretty humble. It wasn't like an egotistical story or anything like that. And I just remember, I wrote him like a 7-page letter, before email. I never sent it. I didn't know where to send it to, and 7 pages is probably ridiculous too.
That's a long letter. Yeah.
It's long, especially for somebody with terrible handwriting. And, but it's just a book. It's just a book that inspired me. And it weaved in great stories. And it wasn't just like this how-to book, like, here's this framework to do this. He'd tell a story, and then he'd give a learning lesson. And I'm a big fan of all his books. And he also, I prefer reading the books, but he also does the audio on some of them. And if for you listeners out there, I don't know if I'd go all the way back to this one, because this is like 600-700 pages. I think it is, at least. I would go to one of his more recent ones, Screw It, Let's Do It, or, Finding My Virginity, or whatever it is. And they're great, easy to read business books and biographies that you could apply. And one of my big takeaways from it, which I think is so important, is it's like, if you're in a meeting with somebody or something like that, take notes. He's a big guy on taking notes. Take notes, and give people the respect that you're actually listening to what they're talking about. But there's so many great stories. Highly recommend it.
Clearly, the audience is listening. Do you still have the letter? Because if we can get it on LinkedIn, I think
No,
we
I
can get it in
don't.
front of Branson. Oh,
Thank
come
you,
on.
Mickey, but no, I don't. I wish I
You
did.
should rewrite it. This is what I like about Branson. It's sort of like I think Charlie Sheen is really good at being a celebrity in the sense that he's still out there doing drugs and he's hanging around with hookers. He's really enjoying his money. We have some of these people that are like unbelievably wealthy. Elon Musk is out of his mind, buying and ruining Twitter, doing all this batshit crazy stuff. Warren Buffett's on the other side, super rich but boring, still drives like a Volkswagen and stuff. This guy, super rich, flies around the world in a hot air balloon. Like that's what super rich people should do. Quirky shit. That's a good time. Stop ruining the world. Stop being unbelievably boring. Just do some wacky rich guy shit, and I think that's what he does.
And Eric, I've got a friend of a friend who actually had the opportunity to go out to his island. I can't remember what it's called.
Right, he has an island. He had a soda company, for Christ's sakes. I mean, God.
But he brings people out there and he talks to these entrepreneurs. And he said, Damon, the 2 days I spent out there, he's like, this wasn't some wild, stupid party. It's like, this was like insights. And he actually sat there and he listened and he talked and we played tennis. He's like, this is the kind of leader that you want to follow or you want to be. So he said he was super inspiring and he learned so much. I mean, what a great opportunity.
Gorgeous hair too. All right, this next book is right up my alley when it comes to this sort of like pop psychology thing, but I haven't read it. It's been referenced many times, so I know about it. So this guy's general idea is that the generalist is better than the specialist, which I guess the tagline says. And I think part of the thing is like humans are binary creatures. We want to believe that there's a right and there's a wrong. There's always some middle because I want my neurologist to be a really good brain guy, but I want my general practitioner to kind of know a bunch of things. So what do you like about this?
Well, it's kind of interesting if you think about it that I like this book so much because, I've been at Learnit 29 years. So I'm, specialist really, if you think about it, but I do other stuff too. But what I really like about this book and a lot of it has to do with, I would say even parenting. I used to be a baseball player. I was a high school All-American. I got drafted a couple times and I get all these parents now, Eric, who come to me and they're like, I want my kid to be a D1 baseball player like you. I got a hitting coach. I got a pitching coach. They're playing baseball 24/7. And that shit drives me freaking nuts. It does because you shouldn't be a specialist, especially when your kid's 8 years old or 9 years old. You got to get your kid out there and have them explore everything. Play baseball, do gymnastics, play soccer, play tennis, play all these different sports. Otherwise a couple things are going to happen. One, they're not going to build up those muscles that you get from, playing soccer or tennis. Two, the kid's going to get totally, burnt out in time. Right. And it just puts too much pressure on them. And so I always kind of promote this book because I just feel like from a parenting perspective, we need to get out of that. My kids are young. I hope that by the time my son Wally is 15, that they allow kids to play multiple sports instead of telling them, well, you're going to lose your spot on the traveling baseball team if you don't. And then from a work perspective, I just think it's really important to be curious. I think curiosity is like one of the key threads to being a great leader. And having range means that you're curious. You're not just interested in one topic. I think people would say, if you throw Damon into a party with a bunch of people he doesn't know, he could have a conversation with anybody because I just kind of get curious and interested in what people have to talk about, and it's not maybe just one thing or two things. And I think that there's so many fascinating examples and studies to back it up. I think it's a great book.
Yeah. I think to be interesting, you have to be interested. And if you drill these kids, here's the other thing that drives me crazy about modern parenting and modern sports with kids. There's no studies or evidence to suggest that what we're doing is the right thing to do. When I was a kid, I played multiple things. It wasn't like travel teams that cost thousands of dollars. Anytime there's a profit motive in something, you got to question it. And these kids that are buying $500 bats and $600 helmets and have to $10,000 for travel teams, do you think just maybe that there's a financial aspect of this whole thing? It can't be that it makes the kid a better. There's only how many baseball teams? 30 or some shit. You're not making it. You're not making it. It's a 0% chance. 0% chance.
I saw a buddy the other day and he showed me his kid's $400 baseball bat. And you know what the kicker was? He had like a super expensive, case that he kept the batting gloves in. I'm like, what do you need that for? And then you have these $110 an hour hitting coaches who have never played a game in their life who are telling their kids are going to be D1 athletes. So I'm all about giving, kids, confidence, but let's set expectations too. So yeah, it's too profit driven and not enough letting the kids go out and explore for themselves, be curious.
It's the veterinarian conundrum. I'm gonna publish this someday. The vet is a perfect example. They'll be like, well, listen, your cat needs surgery, or it's gonna die. The surgery is $2,000, or for 300 we can put it down. Well, you go, well, I guess I'm spending the $2,000 then. So with the kids, it's like, well, does he like baseball? Well, he's gonna have to do all this. Don't you love your kid? Don't you want to develop him into the athlete he could be someday? Don't you want scholarships? If you go, no, I just want it to be a generally interesting human that knows a bunch of, fun at parties. And people go, oh my God, they clutch their pearls. Anyway.
And the last thing I'll say about that too is like a lot of people are like, are you going to throw Wally into baseball and make him do baseball, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm going to give him the opportunity to do whatever he wants to do. I hope he explores it. I hope he enjoys it, but I'm not going to put that pressure on him that he's got to live up to the expectations that, I didn't make it to the big leagues, but I got pretty far. So yeah. I just want him to be able to go out and try things, both of my kids.
If my kid gets into baseball and he wants to do this, I'm going to go, listen, I'm going to send you to Cuba. If you can hit a 95-mile-an-hour slider, we'll talk about a travel team. But until then, though, that's your competition. So good night. All right, your next book, Red Notice. So again, haven't read this book. I did read the synopsis. This guy had some balls. Have you ever seen?
Oh, that's an understatement, man. That's an understatement.
Can you imagine going to Russia and doing some crimes? What do you think? What is going on in people's heads?
He didn't do any crimes. They had crimes done to him.
Right. But he got in. Okay. So give us, that's a good point. Give us the high level synopsis of Red Notice.
Well, the high level synopsis of Red Notice is Bill Browder ran one of the largest foreign investment firms in Russia back before, the wall came down. Yeah. And they, Putin's, people came in and they basically stole all the business licenses and sold them. It's kind of confusing to understand exactly what happened, but he wouldn't pay the bribes. And so they took all his business and they took tax money and they did all this crazy stuff. And then they basically, from there, they charged him with a bunch of random shit, and to the point where he could get arrested and thrown in jail. But on worst case, the thing happened was his tax accountant, Majensky, kind of fought it, right? Which he shouldn't have. He fought it. They threw him in jail and killed him.
Yeah.
And now that's why they had the Majensky Act, with all the sanctions and everything like this. But it's an incredibly fascinating book. And like I mentioned to you, I'm a big fiction guy. I love fiction. This is better crime fiction novel I've ever read. And on top of it, there's a bunch of YouTube videos that he put out that kind of back this up. Mm. And I don't know how Bill Browder, and it gives you a really interesting look into Russia, but I don't know how Bill Browder is still alive. I mean, when you have at the State of the Union or Russia State of the Union, and you have Putin calling him out by name, it's insane. I can't tell you how many times I've recommended this book to people, and they get it. First, they get it confused with the Rock movie in HBO, which it's not. It's completely different. But and they'll just like, Damon, I read this book in like one day. I couldn't put this book down. It's you learn about history, you learn about Russia, and then this guy Bill Browder. He's got more guts than I think I've ever seen anybody have, or stupidity. I don't know, one of the two, but
it's definitely a mixture. That whole idea scares the shit out of me because I went to Italy with my parents and wife, and my mother got caught with like an apple in the security line in Italy, and they were yelling at her and shit. I know. I'd go to Russia, I'd have like a nectarine in my bag, and I'd be in the gulag. You know what I mean? Digging in the gulag for the rest of my it just freaks me the fuck out. So this guy, this guy's got balls. All right, let's talk about your death row meal. This is a hell of a meal, I got to tell you.
Yeah, you like that?
I pulled up I've done a montage. Ready? Okay.
I'm gonna get sick looking at this.
Oh, it's so good. So in the upper left, we have the loaded baked potato. Potatoes appear a lot on here. So not so much the loaded kind, but I do think a potato is sort of like a blank canvas. In and of itself, if you just had a potato, it'd be like, but it gives us so much. French fries, baked potatoes, vodka, tater tots, a million things. The loaded potato, objectively delicious. The cheese, the sour cream, bacon, chives. Oh my God. And it doesn't.
I don't like the chives.
Okay, get the chives out of there. But even let's say you did. I mean, there's no, I mean this in a nice way. There's no credibility. You can do whatever the fuck you want to a loaded potato and it's going to be delicious.
Yeah, I agree. I love it.
And it's readily available. It isn't one of these things that, you know, you can go to an Applebee's and get it. You can go to a nice steakhouse and get it. It's a diplomatic appetizer.
Yeah, and you got the $1 million bacon right next to it.
We did $1 million bacon. So tell me what makes bacon $1 million bacon.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Fred's, where I go to breakfast, they call it the $1 million bacon, and it's like super thick, and they just pour syrup on it, and so I think that's what makes it $1 million bacon. It's like heart. They should just name it heart attack bacon.
Yeah.
And I typically don't indulge in this, especially anymore, because I want to be healthier. But if this is my death row dinner, I mean, I'm gonna.
Who cares about health?
Who cares? Yeah.
And I know you don't care about health because I know what the rest of the meal coming up is. This is another thing I like about the United States cuisine. And somebody made a good point. Like, Japanese cuisine is very precious because they don't want to fuck up. Like our beer, for example. In Germany, they've been making beer for 2,000 years. They don't want to fuck up the recipe. In Japan, it's sushi for how long? They don't want to fuck it up. We're brand new. We don't give a shit. So like bacon, put some syrup on that, some spices. Absolutely. Again, the lack of credibility in history allows for wild innovation. Yeah. And that's what I like about American cuisine. But this one in the bottom left is not American. This is a Yorkshire pudding, which the name is very confusing.
Yeah.
Isn't pudding in England dessert? But now we have this Yorkshire version. It's a popover, right?
I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I just think it's good.
It is good. And it goes very well traditionally with prime rib, which is coming up. But let's not get there yet. You're also doing cream corn, which is just delightful. Sweet corn goo. I don't even know.
Yeah, but you know, I was thinking about this, right? You take the Yorkshire pudding and you just drive it into the cream corn, and then it's a double delight. You know, it's like yeah.
I mean, anything with corn is great, but if I can get more corn in me quicker, that sounds even better. And that's what cream corn is all about. I use it when I make corn chowder because it thickens it and it sweetens it. So I don't know. This is cream corn's first appearance on anybody's death row meal, by the way.
Okay, that's good to know.
So you're an original. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's get to the mains. What we're talking here is, I believe, this is the House of Prime Rib. Is this right?
You're not going to find a better restaurant than the House of Prime Rib. They call it Hopper, and that place prints money. I mean, you call 3 months in advance and like, yeah, I'd like to get a table December 7th. And they're like, okay, cool, 9:30 p.m. You know, party of 2. I mean, it's just, yeah, the Yorkshire pudding to the cream corn to the freaking. You got it right there in the picture. Yeah.
Well, listen, I did my homework. Sweet corn goo is cream corn. It's delightful. If I could drink it, if society would allow me to drink cream corn like out in public, what if you put a little vodka in it? Now we're talking. Okay, so this is in the upper left-hand corner. We have, I believe this is the 22-ounce bone-in ribeye.
Yeah.
Virtually everybody in their death row meal has gone steak. Nobody has ever gone double steak. And then you go with the king cut prime rib. So
yeah. I mean, my favorite, I couldn't spell it. Like you told me to email to. My favorite is called the Côte de Boeuf steak, which is like a 24-ounce steak that they have at Bob's Steakhouse, which is like my favorite place, even though they don't have it in San Francisco anymore. So yeah, I'm just like, hey, if I'm on death row, I'm going to pick up drinking again. I quit drinking 8 years ago.
Now's the time.
I'm happy and I'm proud of. And I'm like, yeah, if I'm on death row, I'm gonna double up on the not only the steaks, but throw in the $1 million bacon, and then have some vodka soda. Not tonic. That's disgusting. Just have a couple. Have a couple of vodka sodas and mix it in. Enjoy some red wine.
I'm glad you said, okay, so many people will do like non-alcoholic drinks here. And then I go, I assume you don't drink. And they said no. And so my point is, you're about to die. Did you ever drink and like it? Because now is the time to get back to it. And everyone's like, nah, I've gone this far. What are you talking about? You're about to be dead forever. The other thing I like, you just said red wine, which is like, you didn't go Cabernet or Pinot Noir.
Red wine, I don't care. It's all the same.
Oh, okay.
My wife's probably like, what is wrong with this guy?
Just somebody would argue with that on that point, but I'm not really a red wine drinker. I'm more of a bourbon guy. So yeah, I don't give a shit. Yeah. Okay, then you go with vodka soda with the lime. Yeah. And then you were very specific about the dessert, which I enjoyed. You were going a brownie hot fudge sundae without the cherry. So
I hate the cherry. I hate the cherry.
So I eliminated it completely. I'm not even letting them put it anywhere near you. But this is a great dessert. This is another thing. Americans crush at dessert. We're very, very good at dessert. And I don't think we get the credit we deserve because this is purely American and it's delightful.
And I would say I've had not too many of these since I, quit the drinking days. Back in the drinking days where I'd have, 2 or 3 or 4 glasses of wine, 26-ounce steak, and
Yeah.
then, finish it up with eating all of this. That at the time it sounds like a good thing to do, and then next morning you're like, oh, wasn't too good of a thing. But again, if I'm on death row, I'm gonna crush this meal, and especially get to the brownie part of this dessert here.
Here's why I don't feel bad about eating and drinking all the shit that we have. Humans have been around for 300,000 years. This has only been around for 50, 60, 70, maybe. So the audacity that I would go, oh my God, we're finally here. We finally reached the hot fudge brownie sundae part of the evolutionary journey of humanity. And I go, no, not for me, thanks. I just think it's insulting to some farmer who was living in 1510 who would have killed his entire family for one of these. You know what I mean? That's my basic philosophy. Enjoy it, because we're all going to be dead forever soon. Bring on the red wine, baby, or the bourbon. All right, last one. We do your favorite quote. Speaking of a guy who wasn't a big drinker, Mahatma Gandhi.
He wasn't?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I thought maybe he looks like he had a couple drinks in this picture.
He just always looks generally drunk.
Happy. He looks
like
happy.
something to do. Yeah. Well, I mean, wasn't he in prison for? I don't think the drinks in prison are great. Learn as if you will live forever. Live like you will die tomorrow. It speaks to you, yes?
Yes.
The only thing about living like I'll die tomorrow is I would not be doing this. I would be with Charlie Sheen somewhere with slathered in drugs and hookers. So I think there's a balance to that, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, this quote kind of stuck with me. I didn't even really think too much about the, live like you will die tomorrow part. It was I'm 52 now. When I was about 38, 39, I was reading 15 books a year or something like that. And I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, I'm almost 40 years old. Does it really make sense to keep learning and doing all this stuff? I mean, isn't that enough already? Then honestly, Eric, I came across this quote and I'm like, learn as if you'll live forever. I mean, and there's so much more you can continue to do. And then I kind of got up to 40 books a year reading, and I just kind of put the learning in overdrive. So yeah.
That's hilarious. I love that at a point in your life, you're like, am I done? Am I full? Have I learned enough?
Yeah.
I mean, this is exhausting.
Or is it going to make any sense? Am I going to accelerate my growth? Am I going to get any better? Whatever it is. But then honestly, this quote I came across this quote and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I can get better. And I like to say great leaders aren't born or made, they're constantly in the making. And I think this quote had something to do with that.
I think that humans are in love with the struggle to some degree. Like if you think about heaven, our view of heaven is sitting around on a cloud all day, night being nice and luxury, just leisurely hanging out in a cloud. We are going to get exhaustingly bored of that very quickly. What humans like is struggle, overcoming that struggle, starting over again. We would never admit it, but we like the up and down. It feeds our soul. So I like that you briefly contemplated, like, am I just done? I'm just done. I know enough. I'm full. I need not know anything else, but I'm glad you came around. Yeah. It makes you more interesting, which is good if you're going to be a podcast guest.
Yeah. Or a human being. If
or a human being. Well, for my purposes, podcast guest, but for the rest of humanity, a human being. All right, listen, we should go, but do you want to do a quick little 2-minute talk about Learnit or your podcast or whatever you want to talk about? Pitch some things.
No, I don't have to pitch anything. I just want to say that I am the CEO of Learnit, which is a live learning platform. We help people become better leaders, learn skills like how to have difficult conflict conversations, how to manage teams, or how to learn how to use Excel. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, Damon Lembi on LinkedIn, send me a note and I'll give you a free class at Learnit. The classes are worth $250. So if you go on our website, you see something you want, tell me that you met me on the America's Sweetheart show. I still want to know why. I still want to know why, Eric. We could tell me later because I know in a hurry here, but why you're the America's Sweetheart. But send me a note that you saw this. I'll send you a code and get you in a class. Check that out. I have a book called The Learn It All Leader, Mindset, Tools, and Traits. It's about my journey as a leader and what I learned from playing sports. If I could do it, you could do it. And also, I have a podcast. I'm the host of the Learn It All podcast, which I love doing. We bring on great leaders. So please check that out. There you go.
Well, you have a fan, 5 stars.
Who's this? Oh yeah. She's like our top teacher, so she's right. Mickey's
Does she have a vested
all
interest?
my teachers are awesome. Mickey's great. You should follow Mickey on LinkedIn. She puts out their phenomenal content. So no, I have great trainers. You know, I think we do good. So yeah, but I appreciate being here today, Eric. This was actually fun. You know, this is a lot of fun.
Thanks. It's
Brought
hard
back a lot of good
to
memories.
Right. It's hard not to have fun when you're talking about music, movies, and Millionaire Bacon. You know, like what more do you want out of a podcast appearance, for Christ's sakes? All right, do me a favor, stick around in the green room for a second, but I'm going to log off the live because, you know, we have real jobs. But I will see you tomorrow, America. Thanks for tuning in. Have a lovely evening.